Good morning, afternoon, or evening. My name is Shannon, and today we are going to be going over 24 books slash series that I hope to read sometime in 2024. Now, when I look at all the books I have sprawled out in front of me, it's probably like 40 books, but a lot of these are series that I really want to get to because I find series more entertaining because you get more invested because it's a longer process. Anywho, let's just get started. The first three should be no surprise to anyone. The first one is A Court of Silver Flames. This is the only book I have yet to finish in the ACOTAR series, and I actually started reading it in September, and I got maybe like 40% of the way through, and I was just in such a bad reading slump that I just haven't picked it up again. I would really like to get to it and finish it, as I was really enjoying it. I just didn't have the motivation to read it all. Next, we have the Throne of Glass series. I have been talking about this for probably half a year now on this channel that I want to read this series so badly. I just can't find the motivation anywhere. I started Assassin's Blade and I read one page and then I was like, actually, I'm gonna go read Binding 13 on my Kindle. I really hope I can get to it sometime this year. If any of you have any way to incentivize me or to motivate me to want to read this or get me in the mood for it, please leave it down in the description because I legitimately want to read it. I just can't find the will to anywhere inside of me. Next, this is all going together, so I think you can probably guess that I want to read Crescent City this year. I am aware that the third book literally comes out in a couple weeks, and I can say with certainty that there's no way I'll be able to read all of this in time to read that when it comes out. I just really hope I'm able to avoid any spoilers on TikTok or Book Talk or whatever, just anywhere on the internet. I don't want to see spoilers because I know that there's a really big reveal at the end of this book, and I really want to read it. I think because we're on the fantasy series wavelength, I'm just going to keep going with that. And I would really like to read the Shadow and Bone series. I'd also really like to read the Six of Crows, but that's not included in this video. I have heard very mixed things about this series as a whole, and I did watch the show and I thought that was really good. So I would like to read the series before I dive into Six of Crows, but we'll see. Next series is I would really like to finish the Cruel Prince trilogy. I read The Cruel Prince in November and I really enjoyed it. I've said this before, but it was very twisty and turny and it gave me a little bit of whiplash from that, so I put a little time in between me reading the next books in the series. But I've been seeing so many TikToks about Jude and Carden on my For You page that it's really made me really excited to finish this series and see where it all goes from the first book, and I would really like to finish it. Next, I would really like to read the Shepherd King duology. I have heard so much about these books, and if you don't know what that duology is, it is One Dark Window and Two Twisted Crowns. I've heard so much about these books. I've seen so many amazing stellar reviews. I'm just wildly excited to read these. I know it's about like a dark magic system and I think there's a romance in it. I don't really know, but I realize how common a trope it is, but I really love the trope when the woman character is literally like an absolute powerhouse in terms of what she's capable of, and I'm pretty sure that's in this book, so I am really excited to read it. Next, I would really like to read Ruthless Vows by Rebecca Ross. I absolutely adored Divine Rivals, and this book just came out at the end of December, and I really want to read it. I am just very excited to see where it's going to pick up after the cliffhanger that we were left on at the end of Divine Rivals. This duology is about Iris and Roman, and they are rivals at the newspaper they work at, and while they're competing for a promotion at work, a whole war is going on. And Iris's older brother is away fighting at the war, and she's been writing him these letters and slipping them under her wardrobe, and they disappear. And little does she know, Roman is the one that's receiving these letters, and it turns into a very, very beautiful love story, and it's just so, so good, and I would highly recommend this series. Next, this is the first in a series, and I've been itching to read this for months. I just haven't gotten around to it, but it is Powerless by Lauren Roberts. I've heard such wonderful things about this book. I've seen it described as Hunger Games with a magical aspect. It's an enemies to lovers. I think it sounds so good, and I hope that I will be able to get to it even this month. Okay, we only have 2 more fantasy books left. So we have Fire and Blood by George R.R. Martin. I really want to give this series a shot. This is the inspiration for The House of the Dragon, which is the show that is based 200 years prior to Game of Thrones. I never watched it. I never watched Game of Thrones, so I feel like I have a pretty unbiased opinion going into this book. I was told by one of you guys that this is a lot more information, and the Game of Thrones series is much more easy to read. So I might get one of those and start that first, but I still would really like to get to this. The next book is Never by Miss Jessa Hastings. This is a fantasy book, despite the fact that she has written my favorite romance series ever. I'm very excited to see how she writes fantasy. This is a Peter Pan retelling. I think it's going to be so good because it kind of seems like it's a romance between the main character Daphne and Hook, and I love stories where the villain gets the girl. Specifically, this book I rated 5 stars last year, Hooked by Emily McIntyre. That is a fractured fairy tale where Wendy ends up with Hook, and I think it's gonna be the same type of deal here, and I'm so excited, especially since I said this previously, but when I read any kind of Peter Pan, Hook fairy tale retelling, I am able to picture Killian from Once Upon a Time, which was a TV show that aired a while ago. Anywho, I love that character, and he's representative of Hook, and I just picturing him makes the story so much better. And I am very excited to get to this because of it. Okay, now we're going to go into a brief thriller section because I don't think I read a single thriller last year. I would really like to finish the Inheritance games. I have the Hawthorne Legacy and the Final Gambit left. I'm very much so looking forward to this. I really enjoyed the Inheritance games. I think it was very much like Knives Out, which is the way it was recommended to me, and I think that was perfect for what it was. It's very twisty and turny. Basically, a girl named Avery receives billions upon billions of dollars after this old man passes away who she has never met, and he has a bunch of grandsons, and they're all very interested to solve the mystery of why she was named the sole inheritor of the will. And it's very good. I'm excited to see how these pan out. it seems really good. And there's also a love triangle, which okay, I've seen so many people bash love triangles, especially love triangles between brothers. But I think, for me at least, the Vampire Diaries series did something to me where I love them. I will never not love them. I don't know. I just love it, and I loved it in here too. Next, we have If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. I've heard so many good things about this book. It is about a man named Oliver who is just released from jail after he was arrested and incarcerated for the murder of someone in his play group years ago, and it's very Shakespeare based. I don't know how to explain it. It sounds like a really good mystery, and I really think I'm going to enjoy the back and forth aspect of the timelines. Next, we have The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. This is a book about Aiden and Evelyn. Evelyn is murdered at a party she throws, and Aiden has to find out who killed her. And every day, he wakes up in a different person's body that's attending the party to see it from their perspective. And it sounds like a very interesting interpretation of the Groundhog Day paradox kind of thing, where you wake up the same day after and you have to relive it over and over. And I think it sounds really interesting that he's going to get to see the murder from different people's perspectives until he can find out who killed her. And I would really like to get to it. The next book I would like to read is I'll explain. It is Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney, and this is not specific to this book. I would just really like to read an Alice Feeney book because I've heard Sarah Crowley talk so much about Miss Alice Feeney, and I would really like to see what all the hype is about. I have most of her books. I just haven't read a single one, but this book specifically is about a couple, and the husband has face blindness, and one day they win a trip to Scotland, but it definitely wasn't an accident, and one of them is lying, and it sounds really good, and I sincerely hope that I won't be able to guess the plot twist at the end because I have a specific knack for doing that, so I will be very surprised if I am surprised by the ending of one of her books. Next, this book was actually recommended to me by my grandmother because she really likes mysteries. Anywho, it is called Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt, and it sounds extraordinary. This book is about Tova and Marcellus, and if you may have guessed, Marcellus is the octopus. So Tova's husband recently passed away, and she starts working at this aquarium where Marcellus lives. And about 30 years ago, her son disappeared randomly. She has no idea what happened. But Marcellus figures it out and tries to start communicating with Tova in order to help her figure out what happened to her son. And it sounds really odd, but really, really fascinating. And I love, just in general, not even in books, the unexpected friendships in life because it makes them so much more special. And what's more unexpected than a relatively elderly woman and an octopus forming a bond? But I think it sounds really, really good, and I'd like to get to it. The last couple books slash series are all romance slash literary fiction based, so I think I'm going to start with the literary fiction part of that. I would really like to get to Normal People by Sally Rooney, or just a Sally Rooney book in general, because from the way I've heard her books described, they are about real life conflicts that happen every day, all the time. They don't shy away from the ugly parts of life. And while that can sometimes be hard to read, I think it would be incredibly refreshing to read a book about incredibly real life problems that happen all the time. And from what I've seen of Steph talking about this book, I think this will be my first novel I read from Sally Rooney. Next, again, this is not a specific book. I would just really like to read a Bronte novel. I currently have 3. I think one, yeah, I have one from each sister. So I have The Tenant of Wildfell Hall by Anne Bronte, Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte, and Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. I honestly couldn't describe these books to you if I was asked, but I've been saying for a while now that I would like to dip my toe into classics because I feel that if I were to pass the language barrier, and don't you dare try to tell me there isn't a language barrier between current English and classic novels, I think I could really enjoy them. Next, I don't know if this is a literary fiction book or romance. I've heard it's kind of both, but I would really like to read If He Had Been With Me by Laura Nolan. I'm very nervous to read this. I've heard it is heart-wrenching, but there are times when I feel like that is necessary for a read, and I think this book would be really, really good. I don't really know what it's about, but I do know that something happens at the end that's traumatizing, and it is YA, but I think it will be very, very good to read, and I think I'll want to read it sometime this month actually, because I know this version of the book from the boys' point of view comes out in February, and I think it will be amazing. I just really want to get to it. Next, this is all romance now. For the rest of this video, we have The Happy Place by Emily Henry. I've heard so many wonderful things about this book, and it isn't specific to this book. Again, I do just want to read an Emily Henry book. I think that this book specifically sounds really wonderful. It is about Harriet and Wynne, and they used to be the perfect couple, but they broke up like 5 months ago, and they go on this vacation with the rest of their friends pretending to still be together, and the second they get there they realize something is off, and they are in the past. They are at a vacation they have already been on, and I think it sounds very, very interesting to see how this is going to play out with them as a couple. But I don't know, I'm just very excited to read an Emily Henry book. Next, we have Checkmate by Ali Hazelwood. This book I've been excited to read ever since I bought it. It is about Mallory and Nolan. Mallory used to be a chess prodigy, but some things happened and she stopped playing. Now, when she's at a charity fundraiser for chess and she accidentally beats one of the greatest chess players in the world, all eyes turn to her, especially the person she's beaten, Nolan. And he kind of forms an obsession with her after she beats him, and I think it sounds so good. I believe it is YA. I'm not certain, but I think it'll be really, really good, and I think the chess aspect will be very interesting. Next, we have one of my favorite tropes in romance books, In Funny Feelings by Tara DeWitt. This is a workplace single dad romance. I eat single dad up every time. I just absolutely love it, and Farley and Meyer are starting to fake date for publicity for her stand-up comedy, and I just think it sounds so good. I always eat up single dad every single time, and I don't think this time will be any different, so I really hope I can get to it this year. Next, I have already sung the praises of this series before, but it is Saving and Redeeming Six by Chloe Walsh. These books are part of the Boys of Tommen series. The first 2 books were Binding and Keeping 13. These are the 3rd and 4th books in the series. these two books follow the same couple, Joey and Aoife. Joey is the older brother of Shannon, who Binding and Keeping 13 are about, and I think these books just sound so wonderful. I'm so excited to see their love story and falling in love, and I legitimately know I'm going to read them this year. I will probably end up reading them this month. The second to last series I intend to read this year is the Off-Campus series. I have read The Deal. I am currently reading The Graham Effect, which is based on the children from the couple in The Deal, and I'm really enjoying The Graham Effect. I actually saw one quote on a TikTok about how the characters from The Graham Effect meet, and I bought it immediately. But I would really like to read the rest of the books in the series before the rest of the books in the Graham Effect series comes out, which is based on all of their children. This is all sports romances and college romances, kind of, and they are all hockey players, and I really enjoy hockey romance. Now, the last series that I will definitely start this month, I don't know that I will be able to finish it because it's so many books, but I would really like to get to the Addicted Calloway Sister series this year. I don't think I've seen anyone diss this series. I have only seen the best of things about this series, and while all of the books have not been traditionally published yet, they're being published in March and February, so I feel like it's dumb for me to not start it this month, and I can read a couple books a month and it'll put me in the perfect spot. I'm very excited to see this because I just love found family and I think it'll be great. Also, I wanted to say that I did not put any books in here that are yet to be released just because I already made a video on that. I have a video of my most anticipated releases of 2024 video already out. I'll link it down below in the description if you guys want to check it out. With that being said, that is the end of today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed, maybe even gave you some books to put on your TBR for this year. All of my social media is linked down below. Make sure to turn on the notification bell so you guys can get notified right when I post a new video. I hope you guys are all having an absolutely wonderful morning, afternoon, or evening, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!